Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero show with me, your host Simon Conboy. Today's episode is another entry in the Cover Who series. If you've not seen this series before, it's where I discuss a player that I feel has been somewhat forgotten since their retirement. The kind of player that if there was a hall of very good, they would certainly garner some consideration. Never going to get into the Hall of Fame, unfortunately. A lot of these players, some unfortunate circumstances behind why they've been forgotten, and somewhat the case with the player we'll be discussing today. Had a great career, could have been better if it wasn't for numerous injuries, and that player is former Indianapolis Colts tight end Dallas Clark. I've got to be honest, I've been disappointed with how quickly he seems to have sort of faded from memory. He only retired back in 2013 after a couple of sort of unimpressive seasons to sort of end his career. Again, struggled sort of staying healthy for a large chunk of time after his sort of prime years. What sort of surprised me in doing the research for this, I do remember there was a time where he was in Indy where really he was Peyton Manning's number 2 weapon behind Reggie Wayne after Marvin Harrison left, and he was clearly one of the best receiving tight ends in the league. That peak wasn't enormously long, really. It was only about 3 seasons. Other than that, a lot of injury-shortened campaigns. I mean, when we look at his 2009 season, this is absurd. One of the finest seasons a tight end's ever had. 100 catches, 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns, as you'd expect from that. Was first team All-Pro, made, I believe, his only Pro Bowl that year as well. Of course, much of his time in the league, difficult for him to make those teams because you had Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates, both future Hall of Famers, respectively, in that same conference on the Chargers and the Chiefs. And as a result, only the one Pro Bowl, 2009, first team All-Pro. They say that's a damn fine season. That's a pretty historic season as far as tight ends go. He was very effective. 2008, almost 900 yards, 5 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns in 2007. The year they won the Super Bowl, he was very effective in the playoffs. I think before that, early in his career, you could see the talent was there. He was, of course, a first-round pick, as that was back in the good old days of the Colts arms race, where every draft pick seemed to be on the offensive side. Of course, he wasn't one of the primary options in the passing game. You had the Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne tandem for that period of time. As I say, though, once Marvin Harrison left, he did become option number 2. Was never a great blocker, but was a great pair of hands. Tight end. Check out his highlight reels. Some real high difficulty catches. Him and Peyton, once they sort of got onto that same page, he did become number 2. I think he was often a go-to guy in that system. Rather like a Jason Witten type player, not the most dominantly athletic of the modern tight ends, but incredibly good at getting separation in short spaces, very good at reading zone coverages. Of course, when you're playing with Peyton Manning, it is all about precision. If he trusts and knows where you're going to be, the ball's going to be delivered. It's just down to you to be where you're supposed to be and catch it. He did a great job of that. It wasn't the most dynamic after the catch. We're not talking a Rob Gronkowski type truck of a player, or some of these more athletic tight ends like Jordan Reed, who are very, very good after the catch. But as I say, for this spell of time, he was arguably the finest receiving tight end in the league, outside of maybe Tony Gonzalez, who, let's face it, played for such an incredibly long period of time. Again, this is a guy that I think would have got more attention had his prime been longer. Also, perhaps if he hadn't been playing on the Colts, whether he would have been able to have the same success elsewhere. I think he would have been successful. I think he was a very, very good player over that period of time. Even afterwards, I thought the season he had in Tampa wasn't too bad for an aging player. And then similarly in Baltimore, he was at that point, I think the amount of injuries he'd suffered over his career sort of added up. Of course, the 2012 Bucks weren't the best, and the 2013 Ravens struggled to make too much of an impact. But, you know, this is the kind of player that I think he just... When he was in the league, everyone knew who he was. It's always impressive to realise just how sort of fleeting a guy's profile can be in the NFL, especially if you don't put up like absolutely ridiculous numbers. I may be wrong, 500 catches, 560 yards, 53 touchdowns is a great career for a tight end, especially, you know, the early years of his career. You know, drafted in 2000 or in 2002, playing the 2003 season. You know, for those first few years, tight ends weren't the players that you see today. They weren't seeing, you know, 70, 80 catches a season like the top tight ends currently do. The game has definitely changed significantly at that position. Far higher quality of athlete. I think this guy was a good example of a move tight end, perhaps before they became too common. Because I mean, even Antonio Gates has always been very much used as an inline tight end. They have moved him about a bit, but for the most part, he's played a fairly traditional tight end role. Tony Gonzalez absolutely did, and over the course of his career, he managed to develop into a fantastic blocker. Whereas Clark was a mismatch option, and the Colts utilised him as such. Of course, Peyton has to be attributed to some of that success, but I do think, you know, as I say, his prime years were as a number 2 receiver, and his numbers were very good over that period of time. So, you know, I'd say definitely go back and check out that playoff run where he was a very significant player for them. Of course, you've got that catch against the Ravens, which is partly on Manning with incredible accuracy, but Clark makes an incredibly high difficulty catch. I think it's Corey Ivy that's covering him, and, you know, brushes the fingers of the defender. Great concentration, great athleticism for him to make that catch. And also, yeah, that 2009 season, he was an absolute juggernaut. Had a game against Miami, I think it was a primetime game, where he just went absolutely bananas on them. That season he was, you know, absolutely fantastic. If he'd had a couple more seasons like that, he'd possibly enter a sort of Hall of Fame discussion. But unfortunately, his peak was just a little bit too short, I think, to really garner the kind of long-term plaudits that you'd possibly hope for. But he was certainly a successful draft pick, a very significant cog in the Colts offense for a number of years, and for me, a player that's been far too easily forgotten, especially in terms of setting the stage for what a modern receiving tight end does, even if he perhaps wasn't on the same athletic level as some of these current guys. So there you have it. That's today's episode. Dallas Clark, great player, great moustache, and definitely go check out that 2009 season. That was some great stuff. And, you know, it's always fun to watch classic Colts offense with Peyton leading the way, especially if you're going back to that Super Bowl year. You get to see Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark, and Peyton. That's some enjoyable stuff right there. So there you have it. And as always, let me know what you think, whether it's in the comment section below. Find us on Facebook at Cover Zero. Find me on Twitter at Simon Comboy. Always fun to talk ball. If you've got any suggestions for the Cover Who show, get in touch. I've got plenty of players in mind, but no doubt, you know, it's the nature of the show. I've probably forgotten some of these guys too. I'm more than happy to let you guys know if it's a player I'm either planning on or willing to feature in an episode. As always, if you can like, share, subscribe, check out extra shows, of course, only if you've enjoyed it. If you haven't, then don't. But if you've enjoyed it, you can do all those things. It'd be greatly, greatly appreciated. I've got my power rankings coming up, called my paper power rankings. They are based solely on rosters. I've got an interesting system there. Definitely recommend checking those out. And tomorrow we've got the weekly review. We're at the time of year where there's a sliver of news coming through. So there's some stuff there, and I'll also be discussing who I consider to be the top 10 non-pass rushing linebackers in the NFL today. So definitely check that one out. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Always appreciated. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a great day, and go Bucks.